London, 1800. A city of 1 million souls confined within medieval boundaries. By century's end, it would explode to over 6 million, becoming the largest metropolis the world had ever seen. In this video, I've used modern AI tools to bring historical photographs and illustrations to life, allowing us to walk through the streets as they appeared over a century ago. This is the story of 19th century London, the beating heart of an empire that ruled a quarter of the globe. In 1825, London claimed the title of world's largest city, and it never looked back. The population surged from 1 million to 5.5 million in just 90 years. The city's territory expanded from 122 square miles in 1851 to 693 square miles by 1896. Hyde Park Corner, once considered London's western entrance, became swallowed by an ever-growing urban sprawl that stretched in all directions. London became the nerve centre of global finance and trade. The City of London housed 83 banks, over 300 stockbroking firms, and 1,500 merchants by 1862. The Bank of England held £20 million in gold reserves. Each day, £2 million worth of business changed hands in the square mile. While Britain's empire expanded across continents, London's financial district orchestrated the flow of capital that built railways in Argentina, mines in Australia, and plantations in India. London's docks were engineering marvels of their age. The West India docks, opened in 1802, could moor 400 ships simultaneously and store 1 million tons of goods. By 1880, the port received 8 million tons of cargo annually, 10 times what it handled at the century's start. The Royal Victoria Dock, opened in 1855, stretched 1.5 miles in length, lit by hydraulic power and connected directly to the railway network. These docks were more than infrastructure, they were the arteries pumping the lifeblood of empire. But this prosperity had a dark shadow. While the wealthy conducted business in gleaming offices barely a mile away, millions lived in conditions of desperate poverty. St Giles, known simply as the Rookery, was London's most infamous slum. In 1852, a single street housed over 1,100 people in crumbling tenements with open sewers. The East End teemed with over 1 million inhabitants by 1881, a third living in abject poverty. Charles Dickens immortalized these conditions in novels like Oliver Twist. The child mortality rate in the East End reached 20%. Life expectancy for a labourer was just 19 years. London's rapid growth created a sanitation nightmare. 200,000 cesspools, many open and overflowing, dotted the city. Raw sewage poured into the Thames, the same river that supplied drinking water. Cholera outbreaks struck in 1832, 1849, 1854, and 1866. Then came the summer of 1858, the Great Stink. The heat made the Thames reek so badly that Parliament couldn't meet. Finally, action came. Engineer Joseph Bazalgette designed a revolutionary sewage system, 1,300 miles of tunnels and pipes beneath London. When completed, deaths plummeted and cholera vanished. Bazalgette's system still serves London today, a Victorian legacy literally supporting modern life. London pioneered urban transport. Horse-drawn omnibuses appeared in 1829, soon numbering 3,000, each carrying 300 passengers daily. The hansom cab became an icon of Victorian streets. 10,000 prowled London by century's end. But the real revolution came underground. In 1863, the Metropolitan Railway opened, creating the world's first subway system. Steam locomotives pulled wooden carriages through brick tunnels dug by the cut-and-cover method. 9.5 million passengers rode in the first year. By 1890, the City and South London Railway introduced the first deep-level electric tube, eliminating smoke and allowing deeper tunnels beneath the city streets. Victorian London was a showcase of engineering ambition. The Thames Tunnel, opened in 1843, was declared the eighth wonder of the world, the first tunnel ever built under a navigable river, taking 18 years to complete through floods, gas leaks, and tragedy. Tower Bridge, finished in 1894, solved an impossible problem: how to cross the Thames without blocking ship traffic. Its bascule design could raise in minutes using massive hydraulic accumulators, all supported by 70,000 tons of concrete and stone. These weren't just structures, they were statements of what human ingenuity could achieve. In 1851, London hosted the Great Exhibition in the Crystal Palace, a cathedral of glass and iron spanning 19 acres in Hyde Park. 6 million visitors came from around the world to witness Britain at the height of imperial power. Inside, 14,000 exhibitors displayed everything from the Koh-i-Noor diamond to steam locomotives, from Indian textiles to British machinery. It was more than a fair, it was a declaration that Britain, and London specifically, stood at the centre of the civilized world. The profits funded a cultural district in South Kensington that gave birth to the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Natural History Museum, and the Royal Albert Hall. London became the first truly illuminated city. Gaslighting arrived in 1810, starting with Pall Mall and spreading rapidly. By 1823, 40,000 gas lamps lit 200 miles of streets. By 1880, 1 million lamps consumed 6.5 million tons of coal annually, making London's nights brighter than any city in Europe. Shop windows glowed after dark. Literacy improved with better indoor lighting. The city earned a new identity as a place that never slept. In the 1870s, electric light arrived, first as experiments, then as the future. Thomas Edison's power station at Holborn Viaduct opened in 1882, powering 3,000 incandescent bulbs. As the empire's capital, London drew immigrants from across the world. Irish refugees fleeing the Great Famine made up 20% of London's population by mid-century. Eastern European Jews escaping persecution settled in Whitechapel and Spitalfields by the tens of thousands in the 1880s, working in sweatshops and markets. An Italian community thrived in Soho and Clerkenwell. Chinese sailors established London's first Chinatown in Limehouse. This diversity created a cosmopolitan metropolis unlike any before it. Culture flourished. 61 theatres operated by 1899. 375 music halls entertained working-class audiences. Museums like the British Museum, with its Great Dome reading room, became temples of knowledge and imperial collection. Victorian London was a city of stark contradictions. Regent Street, designed by John Nash, created a grand boulevard separating fashionable Mayfair from the slums of Soho, a physical barrier between rich and poor. The Metropolitan Police, nicknamed Bobbies after founder Robert Peel, brought order to chaos, though corruption ran rampant in early years. The London County Council, formed in 1888, attempted to govern a metropolis that had outgrown all previous systems of administration. Progress and poverty, innovation and inequality, all existed side by side. The railway transformed Victorian London forever. 12 great termini, Euston, Paddington, King's Cross, St Pancras and others, connected the city to every corner of Britain. But their construction came at human cost. Railway companies built through working-class neighborhoods where land was cheaper, displacing thousands who crowded into even smaller spaces. Yet the Cheap Trains Act of 1883 also enabled working families to escape to new suburbs in West Ham, Walthamstow, and Willesden. The middle classes fled even further, creating commuter towns in once rural villages. London was no longer just growing, it was fundamentally restructuring how people lived, separating work from home, rich from poor, centre from periphery. By 1900, London had been utterly transformed. What began the century as a medieval city of 1 million had become a modern metropolis of 6 million, the largest the world had ever seen. Its underground railway system, its sewers, its bridges, even its street layout still serve the city today. Victorian London wasn't just the capital of an empire, it was a laboratory of modernity, where the urban future was invented through trial, error, and human cost. These weren't just Victorian achievements, they were the foundation of the world's first truly modern city, and in many ways, we still live in the London that the Victorians built. If there is another city, another era, or another moment in history you'd like to see brought back to life, let me know in the comment.